My name is Ian and welcome to Planted. In this episode I show you how to make a bed to grow vegetables that is foolproof. I was recently invited by a neighbour to help breathe life into this vegetable patch. I don't have space, they do, so it's going to be a wonderful project. We've got some fabric, we've got some plastic edging, there's some old rabbit fence and various posts. And in this video I'm going to show you how to build a raised bed without a raised bed expense and effort. Very productive, well worth doing, and anybody can have success growing plants this way. Everyone's got an idea of what they think it is. So typically we have wooden sides, they can be concrete, we've got our ground level, we've got this height here, and we've got this width here. Now this is typically 4 or 5 feet, that works great, and then this is filled with soil. Now we've got 3 costs. We've got lumber, backfill, and labour. Those 3 end up being a lot of money. Now the system I'm about to show you, I think has all the benefits of this system, but is easier to do. I think is much more in line with good planting techniques. So what we do is we take the best of this and we convert it into this system. So here's our ground level. We're not going to build up. We are going to take the 4 or 5 feet. So we'll do a marker there and a marker there. And this is 4 or 5 feet wide. But we're going to make sure that this area underneath, which is 10 to 12 inches, 300 mil, 30 centimeters, thereabouts, is completely uncompacted. And it's compaction that stops plants growing. And the perception is that this area here is uncompacted, and that's why plants grow so well. But the difficulty is that a tiller will not go down 10 to 12 inches. It just won't do it. So there's 3 ways of doing it. Number 1, you've got dig by hand. Now, I wouldn't scoff at that. This is a great idea. All you have to do is one small bed of this width, get it dug over, plant it, and then do another bed, and then do another bed. You can use an excavator. Now this might seem very heavy-handed, but an excavator can easily scoop down just 12 inches, dig it up, turn it over, dig it up, turn it over, and you can make your bed as long as you want. Your choice. So you can start off with one bed, plant it, do another bed to the side, you could extend the bed. The second way is with a rotary plow, which is what I have for this video. I want to show you why it's so special, why it works, and why this expense is a lot of expense, and this is negligible. It's not a lot of expense, much more affordable. And the secret here is that you've got chips on the side which store water, chips on this side that store water and remove weeds, and you end up with a sponge. This is a spongy layer that's completely uncompacted, and water from here can then move into the bed on each side, making for an environment that is just perfect for growing plants. And this is the absolute key. You never ever walk on the bed. You always stand on the side and you reach in to the center. This is the Berta swivel plow fitted to a BCS 750 power safe, very good quality. I'd like the landscape industry to adopt this equipment. Really good on soil, lots of implements can fit this power unit, and this swivel plow is just amazing. This rotation allows you to go back down the row that you've just made, or you can go around in circles using the single swivel. This is the double, and then you put it in the center for transportation. A wonderful machine. Take time to mark out your beds. You want to make sure that you've got your layout so that your beds are in the right place. And then you can start on one side with the Berta swivel plow, or you can do what I'm doing here, which is start in the middle of the bed and I fire the soil to the side. That means that I get in there and I take care of that soil. Now, unlike a tiller that only goes down a few inches and chops up all the weeds, the Berta swivel plow goes down to a depth of between 10 to 12 inches in a single pass. It's a narrower bite, but it does that single pass, so there's no need to go over it again. With a tiller, you might be tempted to go over it 3 or 4 times, and the idea of getting just a little bit deeper. But what you do is you completely shatter the soil structure, and you get this very light, fluffy, powdery texture to your soil, and then when it rains, the whole thing will solidify and get compacted, and if you walk on it, it's even worse. So here you can see the center of the bed has been made, and now I'm coming down one side and the soil is being stirred. It's just being stirred and pushed into the center of the bed, and then you come back up the other side, and I've now got the handlebars off center so that I can walk down undisturbed ground and not in the trench that I just made. The whole thing the machine weighs about 450, and I think that the swivel plow is about 130 pounds. So we've got best part of 600 pounds just gently going through the soil, and with a differential lock, you lock the wheels together and this thing will pull like a tank, and it's doing the work. I'm just walking behind it with my hand on the drive mechanism, and here we go. We now have a wonderful growing environment. So the bed's been made, and I've put a stake in the center at each end, and that's where I'll then take my measurements to set the width of my bed. I'm snapping a line that's 2.5 feet away from my center line, and I've added probably a 30% application of fertilizer, nothing too strong, and I start to rake from the center out to my line. And what I really want to emphasize here is that we're looking to create a unified growing zone that's substantial. It's not a series of pockets with a plant put in that pocket. This whole 5-foot wide, 30-foot long bed is essentially contiguous. So we can get water moving around, we can get oxygen moving around, and it's much less likely to have extremes of either too wet or too dry. By using the rake, I pull from the center out, I can flick out any bricks, I can flick out any roots, and then I come on the other side and do the same process. And I've heard from many customers that have had this system work in their yard. They like the way this system looks. It looks very meaningful, very businesslike. Having 2 parallel lines 5 feet apart with the raised bed, I say raised, only slightly raised, in the middle, you end up with a first-rate growing environment. Here's a second application of fertilizer, probably another 30% application, and I can do another application later in the year. And that gets raked in. Flat, perfect, lightly fertilized growing environment. There is a first-rate garden store down the street from where I live. I bought cabbages, Brussels sprouts. I got a mixture of seeds, beetroot, carrots. This is the softneck garlic, which I'm looking forward to growing. Always a bit hit and miss. Sometimes they're fantastic, sometimes they're not so good. There's a type of fingerling potato called pink fir apple, which I could not get. So this is the fingerling potato called banana, ironically. Always take care not to knock off the little buds that germinate. I've got some onion sets. It comes as a packet of 100. And then I've got myself some more seed potatoes. Once it's planting time, it's very exciting to get stuck in there, but this is 3 days later from when the bed was made with a machine. And that allows our bread, our sponge, just to settle without lots of activity to compound it and compress it. I put a line straight down the middle, and here we are putting out cabbages. These are our first plant to go in. And this is where I made this little template. It's 5 feet long, 4 inches wide, and I've drilled a little cutout every 5 inches. And this is a very valuable tool. It helps me get the spacing right. It helps me get straight lines, and I can put my hand on it and put my weight on that if I have to reach into the middle. It's something that I've been using for years, and I've made them and I break them, so I make another one. But that little trick really will help you make your garden look really nice, but also help you be productive. And you don't have to have a tape measure. All you need is that stick with the little marks on it, and you'll be off to the races. So next up is the cabbage. We want to plant 2 on the center line, and 2 obviously on one side, and then 2 on the other side. Here you can see me resting my arm on that board. Very, very useful, very, very helpful. When I've had people do this that have wanted to use this system, they do unwittingly just start walking on the bed. And I have to tell them 3 or 4 times, don't walk on the bed, don't walk on the bed, work on the side. And it's something that you're going to have to get into the habit of and pay attention. Now this is a trick I came up with years ago. Our bed has settled, and some parts have settled more than others. And all you do is take a 3 or 4 foot long stick. Typically I use the white board, but I use a stick instead. And you are leveling off and flattening. And what happens is that any bricks or blocks, you feel them and you can pull them out. And you scratch off the high areas and you put them into the low areas. And you can see the bed start to materialize in your eyes. It's quite remarkable how this flat level area has now presented itself. So we've got some seed that I'm going to plant. And I don't plant in rows, and I don't do drills. I take 1/3 of the seed in the pack, holding the pack upright, and I sprinkle those seeds broadcast across my planting area. I hold, my hand is about 1.5 to 2 feet above the ground, and that means that when I let go of the seed and I sprinkle them, the wind helps them disperse. And I'm going to put in here, this is some carrots that are going in now, but I've got radish, carrots, beetroot and onions, little spring onions, scallions. And they're just broadcast, and they will, with the wind, just move on the surface slightly, find a little nook and a cranny and settle in there. Here we go again, let's put in some more seed. So what you end up with is a 5 foot wide bed. We're probably about 7 feet long, and I'm going to have seeds growing in all of it. And what I want to do is thin it as I harvest. So any areas that have got a little bit of extra density, that's where I start to thin them first. And this will be giving out food for months and months, rather than having a whole crop of carrots come at once. I can pick them as I need them. So here's that trick again. I'm going to plant in here foliage, crispy pak choi. So I use the same trick method, the same method with the stick, and you see I just managed to pick up on a brick that was there. But using this means that you can pull excess soil towards you and maintain that bed at, in this case, 5 feet wide. It's a wonderful trick, so easy. You also knock down the soil rather than using a rake. And if you get a little bit of a weed, you can easily pull it out and push it to one side. Now what I do is, I will put a stick or a cane in between different varieties. And the reason for that is, I know exactly where to sow, and I know exactly where to look for germination. These seeds really are quite small. So there we are, 2 feet high, maybe 1.5 feet. Put some on one side, go over, and do the same on the other side. And this is where it gets really interesting. Taking that stick, you lightly tap the soil. And I'll do the same for the seeds I sowed earlier, the carrots and the beetroot. as I'm doing now for this seed, but you're just firming those seeds in place so that they don't blow away. We are going to get rain later on today, so I've got my seed in the ground in a perfect growing environment, ready to get some natural rain. And then I put back the divider. Next up on our project are potatoes. Now there's probably 10 different ways you can grow potatoes. This is the way that I have grown them before and they've worked very well, so I'm going to do it again. You dig your trenches across your bed. You need to go down about 8 inches. And the reason you dig a trench is so that you get good spacing. You'll never have the perfect number of whatever it is that you're growing. I put a wooden stake at the beginning so I know exactly where my potatoes are going to come. Now in this pack, it said 6, I actually got 7. So typically I would put 5 in a row like this, essentially a foot apart. These are a little bit closer because I don't want to have half a row of a variety. But there you see they're nicely spaced. And then I'm going to backfill with 4 inches. So it was 8 inches deep, and I'm backfilling with 4 inches of soil, and I'm not firming it in. When that rain comes, that rain will wash the soil around those tubers and they'll grow nicely. So next up we've got the other potato, which is Kennebec. Very well known, great potato. Make sure you put in little wooden stakes at the beginning of your rows. You want to know where to look for when your seeds and your potatoes start sprouting. And I've got enough here for 2 rows, and I'm putting them in a foot apart. So we've got 1 in the middle and 2 each side, so 5 in a row. And then I've also got another row of the same. 8 inches deep, backfill with 4 inches. And what happens is the plant will put out shoots, and then when they get 3 or 4 inches high, you then put more soil on it. Then they'll grow again, and you put more soil on it. You want to mound up as they grow. That's why potatoes are grown in mounds. They like lots of water, and this mounding process helps achieve that. So this is typically what I use my board for when it's not doing spacing. There was a lot of soil here to move, so I use this board rather than that stick. Such an effective, easy method. Next up, we're going to set our area for both garlic and onion sets. The board does the job, as I've shown you in the past. Set the board in the middle. And these are soft neck. I wouldn't say I've had the best success with garlic in the past. Typically, soft neck are planted in, they fall in October, November. But I found these, I thought I'd give them a go. I put them in the ground. Now they really shouldn't be buried. Just make sure the roots are in contact and give them just a little firm. But that soil being so uncompacted means that they plant very, very easily. Now, something for you to consider is that you want to grow plants that you're going to eat. And frequently they come in a pack, and you might want to grow 20 and they give you 100. And you'll see that in a moment. So when you buy your plants that you want to grow, don't feel that you have to grow the entirety that come in that box or that packet. I was very surprised that my garlic had got 4 huge bunches of garlic. So I just planted 2. And here we are with the onion sets. There's over 100 in this bag. I'm going to just plant 1 double row, and I'll give the other ones away to my friends. You want to grow as many different plants as you can that you know you're going to eat, and not fill up your limited space in just one area. So there we go. I planted this entire bed in less than an hour. We've got all sorts of deliciousness that will soon be growing. Now I realize that this is a specialist piece of equipment. BCS are available. There's a good dealer network. The Swivel Rotary Plow really is quite special, and you're highly unlikely to be able to lay your hands on this. But I use it as a demonstration, and I thought I'd give the machine a little bit of a once-over. It's got 3 gears. We've got this very handy safe system. You have to hold on to the red handle and let go, and the whole thing stops. It'll just go on tick over. We've got a PTO shaft. Rather than a belt, which is quite sapping of energy, the PTO shaft is much more effective Forward and reverse. This is the diff lock that locks the axle together so that the wheels don't spin. Makes it very, very powerful, and you can really get wherever it is you need to go, even when it gets a little bit sticky. We've got brakes on each side, and then this handle is very useful. It disengages the lock on the handlebar so that you can swivel it left or right. This means that once you're set up in your row, you can just knock your handlebar to one side and walk on undisturbed ground. I showed you that earlier in the video. There's a PTO lock there for a quick connect, so you're not spending a lot of time with wrenches and spanners trying to bolt it together. You rotate that handle and the whole thing slides off. Thank you so much. Tell your friends, tell your family. Let's go grow something.